Reject him not that speaketh. Don't reject this message. That's what he's trying to say. Every man which is under the law has the seed of Esau in him and has the ability to destroy everything grace represents. Have you seen how much hatred people who teach the law have against preachers of grace? Doesn't it even shock you? Have you ever had a preacher of grace seeking to fight a man of the law? Do you hear us talk about them? Do we mention their names? Do we mention their ministries? Do we accuse them of anything? Don't we know what they do? We know. We know. Many of them, they can't even match to our moral standard. They can't. It's the truth. But some of them think that they are hating a sister because they are teaching the gospel of grace. No, they're not just hating this person. They're dealing with a spirit that is so old. So old. They sent people to kill us. I've seen it. I could not believe. One guy came and said, I wanted to shoot you. So I came to a meeting to hear you first. He told it to me in my ears. He said, I wanted to shoot you. But I said, let me go and first hear you before I shoot you. And the Lord transformed the man. Now he's preaching the same message. Somebody shout hallelujah. Why do you think men like Paul were beaten? You think Paul was just beaten by Jews? No, there was a seed at work in them, seeking not only to destroy but to kill. That is the seed that killed Jesus. It could not leave him. It was men of the law that killed him. It was the Pharisees and Sadducees, the ones that say crucify him. It's them. It's not the people who walked on the streets healed. It's not the crippled. No, the people who are on the streets knew what that man was doing. But there was a spirit that was so blind, not because it did not know what was being done, but that it was functioning to fulfill a bigger vengeance. A blessing was stolen. A blessing was stolen. That's why I tell people, we can teach peace between brethren, but there will never be a full unity in the church of Jesus Christ unless there's a unity of the faith. Not of faith, but of the faith. The Bible speaks of till we come in the unity of the faith. That's what the Bible speaks. It speaks of the unity of the faith, Ephesians 4:13. It speaks of the unity of the faith, comma, and of the knowledge of the Son of God, comma, and to a perfect man, comma, and to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. So how do we get to that fullness? By a certain measure. How do we get to a certain measure? By a certain perfection. How do we get to a certain perfection? By a certain knowledge of the Son. And how do we get through that knowledge of the Son? Through a certain unity of the faith. The gospel, the doctrines must reconcile. You will never be, if you can have peace with them, but you can never be one with a person whose doctrine cannot agree with you. But we are called to pursue peace with all men, wherewith no man can see God. So, I know that some people are saying, oh, let's be united. You can't unify people who are divergent in doctrine. What you can do is to bring peace between them, but you can't unify them. It doesn't mean that all people who are at peace with each other are actually one. No. The Bible says when a man's ways please the Lord, he even puts his enemies at peace with him. It doesn't mean that they stop being his enemies. They just have peace with him, but they're his enemies. You see what I'm saying? But again, here's the good news. The message of grace never fails. It never fails. Everywhere it goes, it will grow. Everywhere it goes, it will multiply. Everywhere it goes, the blessing of God will be evident on it. When we started preaching this message many years ago, in this nation specifically, many people did not understand it. And they gave us all sorts of names. I read things until I was tired of reading them. They have 29 things, 30 things of grace, extreme grace preachers. And they read one at a go. And these things, you don't even have a clue about them because they don't even connect to you in any way. So one time I remember sitting in a group of men and I said, but the things you've just read, they were downloaded from the internet. And you're presenting them to me, accusing me. And I'm telling you that these things that you have interpreted about this message are not true, and neither do we teach them. And a man says, but you see, so why do they say you teach them? I said, it's their problem to say. I thought you came to hear me tell you that I don't, because how can somebody think that when we preach grace, we tell people to sin? And somebody can hear you say that it's not true and still go out and say that you said it is true. It's not them. No, this thing is older than them. It's just on them. I want to help you, some of you, because some of you are fighting in the flesh. You see, because I sat these people down and I said, it was many years ago, they called me a campus, university. And two of them were clergymen of a certain religious organization. One was a certain leader of a certain Christian organization. Some came from 2, 3, or 4 churches. And they sat us down. They said, you're teaching this. And I said, we're not teaching that. We're not teaching that. We're not telling people to sin so grace should abound. It's not true. So I asked them, did you call us to know the truth? Or you called us because you wanted us to be wrong? Because there's a difference. Someone can be seeking to know the truth, but another person can seek to make you wrong because they actually pray you are wrong. Why? Because the results on your life are not fair for them, especially if you are right. Somebody shout glory! Glory! That's what's disturbing them. So, I told them this is not true. And they'd gone through all our campus ministries. And they told all these leaders in campuses not to associate with us and have nothing to do with us and close the fellowships. In fact, some universities joined that madness and closed their fellowships in the universities and persecuted our own children. 3 times I was in the middle of preaching and they called police on me. I'm getting kids off drugs. I'm getting kids out of perversion. I'm getting their children out of club. And they were calling the police on us. One time a guy came and showed me a card from the state organ, one of the organs. He was misusing his office. He wasn't sent by the state, but he was misusing his office to fight a spiritual and a religious war. And he threatened me with all threatenings. We're going to release articles about you in the newspapers. And all the titles he told me they were going to release, they released them. The first article that came out after he had warned me, he said, we're going to accuse you for this. And I saw the next morning, sex cult in Kampala. We are a sex cult, they said. And I'm driving back home and a fellow man of God calls me and says, tune on the radio. And I'm listening to the radio. I'm hearing a Christian pastor reading a tabloid of us. And he's reading from that tabloid what has been written by a newspaper and is justifying it and attacking us directly. A man who could call me and ask to know the truth. I didn't get annoyed with him. I also knew what he was dealing with. It's thousands of years old. What's on him is so old. It's so old.